The reason why I wanted to speak out in particular is just from um, personal experience and to add my voice to this discussion, and hopefully something that I say might stick. So, the first thing I want to address is that I am I'm feeling a lot of different emotions right now about what's happened. And ever since COVID started, I've felt a lot of different emotions. I've felt fear. I have felt scared to go outside. Um, I've felt sorrow and anger and so many other things. Um, and the biggest thing that I want to mention is that racism against the Asian American Pacific Islander community is nothing new. It did not start here. It didn't start at COVID. COVID didn't make it escalate to this level. It's always been there. It has always been severe. It's always been around. And people just don't see it because a large part of our community is invisible, is largely invisible. Um, the Asian community, I'm not familiar with like a lot of the culture, a lot of the holidays. I wasn't raised in that community. So my perspective on things is going to be very different um, from somebody who was born into that community, whose parents immigrated from Asia to America, and they grew up learning both cultures. For myself, I was adopted from China at 9 months old. I grew up in America. I was raised in the culture, raised in a white family, and most of my friends are white. My boyfriend is white. And the only Asian friends that I have are other Asian adoptees from China. And guess what? Their boyfriends, all of their boyfriends are white too. And I just find that so funny because, you know, since when did being white or the concept of whiteness become simultaneously synonymous with both safety and protection and also caution? And that's just something that I think about a lot because at the start of all of this, back in March 2020, I was afraid. I was very afraid to step outside, to go for a walk by myself, to go to the grocery store by myself, because I kept hearing of all of these kinds of attacks on Asian Americans and older Asian members in the community being pushed down, being shoved, being hit. Um, and now this that's happened in Atlanta. It's terrifying. It is scary to be an Asian American in the country right now. And I'm not going to sugarcoat that because it is. And I still feel that sense of like caution every time I step outside. So back in March, when it was really snowballing and starting to, you know, people were starting to target individuals in the Asian community, I would wear a baseball cap and sunglasses every time I went outside because I wanted to hide features, any sort of identifying features that marked me as Asian. And it's not like you can, if someone comes up to you and starts verbally attacking you or physically attacking you, it's not like you can stop them in the middle and say, "Oh, hold on, wait. I'm not actually like from China." Well, I mean, I am, but I'm not actually like, a member of this community. I was raised here. I'm American. Like, I'm a citizen. Um, you can't do that. So for me, it was this weird, like, in between. You know how they say some people who are like biracial or multiracial have like a foot in each world? That's kind of how it is for um, Asians who are adopted and brought to America and raised in this culture. Because no matter how much we identify with white culture and European culture and just American culture and identities in general, we will always have the features of being Asian. And there's nothing that we can do to change that. Um, and when you have these people that are so convinced and like so disillusioned by this kind of rhetoric, like the Chinese virus or the Kung flu, or people making jokes about it like that. When you have these individuals that are so wrapped up in that like sense of disillusionment, it's dangerous for people like us. And the fact that it's now just coming to light in the media, there's a lot of like one on the one hand, I'm happy to see such rallying community support for this community. And then on the other hand, I'm also skeptical that it's going to last. And another thing I want to talk about is is just that issue. So one time, back in undergrad, I made a comment at some event or something, I forget, but it was about how why isn't the same energy and attention given to other communities of color? You know, kind of like it is for like the Black community. They have so much support from one another, from other people, and that's wonderful. Like I'm so glad that there is the Black Lives Movement and that there is so much community support and involvement and resources given to them because they need it. They deserve it by far, without question. But the only thing then I wondered was like, well, shouldn't that kind of attention and community support be given to other communities of color, not just like Asian Pacific Islander, but also Latino, also Jewish, any other minoritized group should also receive some of that same energy and support, right? And another person in that audience like accused me of being like part of the problem between the Black community and the Asian community, saying that this is why there's such a divide, um, because of like thinking and the thought process and perspectives such as that. And I'm just like, no, first of all, that's not what I was saying at all. Because the person was like, well, you are essentially saying like one community deserves more attention than the other. And it's turning into this fight of who should receive more help or more attention or support. And I was just like, no, that's not it at all. That is not what I was saying. I'm saying that, you know, for the Asian community, they don't have that kind of sense of support. It's a very, you know, it's collective thinking, but also like if you have a problem or if you have an issue, mental health and things like that, and any sort of problem that you have, it's not generally talked about in the Asian community. Um, and this I know just through like reading and research and things like that, things that I've learned in my classes about how the typical Asian culture and Asian families operate. Um, yeah, so a lot of information that's thought of to be private is not shared. So there isn't that same sense of support and connection in the Asian community like there is in the Black community. And all I was saying is there should be. But this individual thought that I was like fighting for, or like starting a fight for who, like which minoritized group should receive more help, and that was not it at all. Um, so what I'm seeing now in the media, shared on Instagram, shared on Facebook, from people that I know, from friends, from family, um, and the sense of like rallying community support that I've talked about, that is wonderful. That is fantastic. And I am thrilled to see that because for the first time in my life, I have seen, like, I've never seen that before. And part of the reason why I'm in this field, why I'm in student affairs, is to be an advocate for people like me who didn't have that, who were looking for that sense of support. And now that I'm seeing it, like coming in waves from everyone, from all around, from businesses, from politicians, from people that I know. It's such a it's such a new feeling. I don't know how to describe it. I'm relieved and also skeptical, like I've said, because I just hope that that same energy is going to stick. I hope that it's going to, continue, and that this right now is just the start of a whole nother movement for the Asian American Pacific Islander community. Um, I also have seen some people using the hashtag Asian Lives Matter, and I want to say that is not our hashtag to claim. That is um, specific and individualized to the Black community. It's Black Lives Matter. If you want to use a hashtag, use the hashtag Stop Asian Hate or Stop AAIP Hate. That's what we can claim. Black Lives Matter, that is their own. So I also wanted to mention that too. But I just also want to end by saying that if you or someone you know has contributed to this rhetoric of the virus being called the China virus or the Kung flu, stop. And if you hear someone calling it that, intervene, say something, because that's entirely the reason, and that kind of rhetoric is the exact reason why incidents like Atlanta are happening. And if you know me in any capacity, if you are my friend, family member, if you care about me as an individual, you will stop. You will stop others from saying those kinds of things, because who knows? I, myself, or any other Asian identifying individual in your life could be the next martyr. And I refuse. I refuse to be the next martyr. And I refuse to have, my identity squelched again because I hid it for so long. And just no more. Enough is enough. I am sick of this happening to anybody, not just the Asian community, not just the Black community, all people of color, anybody who's ever been targeted in their life. It's got to stop. So that is the danger of, racializing. I don't even know if that's a proper word, but that's the danger of like attributing race to a virus, because it doesn't just identify, like one person said, oh, it's just stating like where it comes from. It doesn't just do that. It also makes that community of people attached to that location a target. And I'm just sick of being in hiding, and I'm not going to do that anymore. So I'm asking, I guess, as if you're a friend, if you're a family, if you're just someone who I know, I am asking that you listen to the stories and to the lived experiences of people of color and speak up and do something about it. Educate yourself, educate others, find resources. I've been sharing a lot of stuff on Instagram about people you can follow, but put in the legwork to do some, social justice work, and maybe collectively we can affect real change in society, because the pattern that I've been seeing my whole life, it's time for that to end. That's all I have to say. Thanks for taking the time to listen.